Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Ray the Flying Squirrel here. And I'm Mighty the Armadillo here, welcome you all back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos once again. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more Let's Play of Donkey Kong Country Returns for the Nintendo Wii, or Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D for the Nintendo 3DS. So, last time, we've essentially did manage to finally complete the second half in terms of the forms of the volcano world by tackling through the last few stages on that particular world. And on top of that, we did somehow manage to tackle through the final temple level in the game. And on top of that, we beaten the likes of the forms of Tiki Tog. So as a result of that kind of stuff though, we actually did this on the first attempt on that fight. Even though, except in the beginning portion, just because of this unexpected obstacles that we need to avoid. So regardless of everything else though, I think we did fine enough, don't you think? Well, yeah, absolutely. So today, this is going to be the finale video in terms of Donkey Kong Country Returns as the game itself. And because of this though, that once you've beaten the game for one time, basically we can actually come across into ourselves the special level that we can able to actually access to. But here's the catch though, is about the fact that as you can see, we actually got every single Kong letter. So as you can see, we've now got the token representing all of the Kong letters have been collected. And there's also to the point where the fact that we don't need to necessarily try to able to worry about that anymore. So relatively speaking, let's dive right back into the forms of our second file, because I was originally trying to go ahead and showcase off the file number 1, but I don't feel like trying to able to show this off anyway. So here we are into the forms of the actual island itself, and because of that, as you can see, we now stumbled across into the Golden Temple. And as far as I'm aware, in this version in particular, it only features one level. So as a result for that kind of stuff, for that particular point's worth noting for. Although before we dive right into the Golden Temple level, we'll go ahead and showcase off the forms of those 3 inventory items that's only accessible on the Wii version of Donkey Kong Country Returns. Although I would have liked able to mention about the 3DS version of certain items, but we'll save those in a later time. So as you can tell, we somehow brought Squawks the Parrot alongside with the forms of the Heart Boost, and finally the Banana Shake. So we'll show those off in it during time. So either way though, just in case we're able to do the forms of some extra stuff we'll show off. So yeah, and as I said before, that the Wii version of the Golden Temple only features one level, unlike the 3DS version does have 9 levels. So in some cases though, here we are onto World 9-1 Golden Temple. So yeah, there's not much else to say about this for the most part. So it's just about the fact that, like I said before, there's only one level. So are you ready for this, Mighty? Yeah, absolutely. But here's the catch though, is that in order able to actually completely done with this particular stage, that as you probably already know, we need to get every single colored orbs, because if you don't, basically there is actually the exit arrow onto the left, meaning you can able to actually exit out this point at any time. But since we do manage to able to collect every single color orbs, then we can obviously able to participate in for one last challenge. Well, in terms of the forms of the main game anyway. So either way, those are all 8 of those colored orbs, and that way we can now go inside the Golden Temple. Now, before we dive right into the final level in the game, we got ourselves a cutscene to watch. So yeah, please enjoy. So here we go folks, onto the Golden Temple, and as you can tell, it's all covered in clouds and everything. Okay, quick error right there, sorry about that, because we somehow come across into a power cut earlier, so well, at least the good thing about this is though, is about the fact that the game auto-saves, so at least that's something I suppose. So, as you can tell, this will be the last time we're going to be able to keep on collecting those puzzle pieces, and fundamentally speaking though, that luckily there's only 5 of them in this level, so either way. Now, as far as I'm aware, on the 3DS version of the Forms of World 9, usually known as the Cloud World, basically it only features puzzle pieces and no Kong letters to be found, so I'm really appreciate about that, especially because, well, I don't think there's any, temple level during the course of the forms within the 3DS version of World 9. So obviously, this is without doubt is one of the trickiest levels in the game by far. Well, it seems obvious because it brings you ultimate test of patience and all that stuff. So basically, it's filled to the brim with a lot of fruit around here, ranging between bananas and I believe blueberries, blackberries, or something relates to that. And on top of that, with the forms of strawberries, and it's a nice little fruit, wonderful fruit paradise of any sort. I have no idea why I explain things weirdly enough though. That's just because it's been about 3 days ago since we've actually last played this game, since Journey Forms have been the exactly the same day as, unfortunately, the Little Mermaid live-action movie has recently released. And because of that though, it's bad enough the reviews is actually getting a bit... I don't know. I'm sure that most other toys were able to explain more details about that during at some point in the later videos to come, especially because now we're actually getting very close towards the end of May, so as a result, until by that time, until on Thursday, we can pretty much expect that we move on to the 6th month, which appears to be the June. So either way, it's also worth noting for us about the fact that, we're now onto the final main level in the game, that also means there's a lack of checkpoints, so every time you fall off and die, well, obviously, that the checkpoints will not appear, just like in irregular temple levels, as far as this is concerned. And also worth noting for, there's no Diddy Kong barrel for you, so, or the DK barrel to be more specifically, so, yeah, you're most able to actually just don't try to rush this part, because otherwise, if you try to rush too much, well, obviously about the fact that there is no guarantee for you to able to actually realize that you have to do it like in a flawless run or something. So yeah, I apologize for that commentary, it's a bit slightly hiccupy at this point today. I mean, relatively speaking though, it's just about the fact that I'm just really looking forward to know about the next month is going to be on the horizon, which is of course June. So, and I believe fundamentally speaking, with those koala enemies, as you can tell, that they only appeared in this particular level, strangely. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure why they managed able to bring those enemies for last, but either way, though, beggars cells can't be choosers, I guess. And also, we come across into those falling oranges that we do definitely need to avoid. I mean, what is this, like a massive backlash of the forms of the annoying orange cartoon? Well, I've heard about the forms of the series as a matter of fact, but I'm just not a big fan of it. Yeah, especially because about the fact that it's just for kids only kind of stuff, so... Anyway, so once you make it for this point, then we have to do this one last thing, and that is barrel cannons for about so many times, and once you've done so already, then we actually revealed something out of this particular thing right there. And this one appears to be the final gold barrel, and we get ourselves the strange object, which appears to be a mirror. And this will actually brings us to the ultimate challenge of the game, which I'm sure that we'll explain more details as soon as we're able to leave the level. So, yeah, there we go, folks. We've got every single puzzle pieces in the entire game. So, you can now play in any level in mirror mode. In this mode, Donkey Kong does not receive any help from his pal Diddy Kong and can't use inventory items. And to make it even more challenging, he has only one heart, or he only has one heart. Good luck. So basically, we'll show the mirror mode for later, because obviously, that's, yeah, there are some other extras we can probably show off. And because of this though, we now actually have ourselves an additional slot, which meaning about the fact that on these little circle slots as far as this is concerned, this means about the fact that you have to complete one of the levels in mirror mode. So, yeah, but then again, no, we'll show this off for later. So either way, so I suppose we'll probably go in and show off the forms of those inventory items first. Like, for instance, we're about to get started with the forms of the first item inventory we can use. That's what appears to be the mirror, the heart boost. And this allows you to able to have the additional health. So, that was before when the 3DS version was a thing, where they actually introduced the new mode, and basically you have like 3 hearts on the forms within the new mode, in the forms within the 3DS version of the game, whilst in here though, it only has like 2 hearts, and then if you have Diddy Kong, then obviously in the 3DS version you have 3 additional hearts, meaning you get like 6 units of health, and as far as I'm aware, In the original version, it obviously has 2, but as you can tell, if you do manage to equip the Heart Boost item, basically you have yourselves 5 units of health. However, if you lose one of your heart's health units, well, no worries, because obviously if you do come across into a heart item again, then obviously you retrieve it back. And on top of all that stuff though, is that unlike the 3DS version as far as I'm aware, I believe it actually gives you about 7 hearts as far as I'm aware. Like, usually there's likely a grand total kind of stuff like this. Again, it's been about 3 days ago since we've last played this game for sure. Although, I was expecting for something worth noting for is that, well, exponentially speaking though, I'm really looking forward to able to actually just to go ahead and say this right now. I'm looking forward to able to do Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze at some point until next year for the likes of the 10th anniversary of the original game's release on the Wii U. But, you know, as we said before, we might as well do it on the Switch version instead, just because of all the better loading times in general. But that's just the way of how I feel about it, ladies and gentlemen. Especially because of the forms of the quality in mind. So, yeah, anyway, that's how the Heart Boost actually works out to be. And because of that, though, it actually really kind of helps you a little bit, especially struggling with the forms of certain tough levels or exponentially boss fights. So, yeah, I guess it's that. So, I suppose the next item inventory thing will show off. That's what appears to be Squawks the Parrot. In some cases, the second and the final animal buddy in terms of this game in particular. Yeah, I know, it seems kind of strange to able to actually make other, like, animal buddies seems to be absent. Like, it's especially noticeable about the fact that I found it was a little bit strange that both Rambi and Squawks the Parrot are the only animal buddies in the game you can only utilize in this game. So, no one got the Swordfish because there was a lack of any water levels to be found. So, but either way though, let's talk about the forms of Squawks the Parrot quickly. Basically, do you even remember about the fact that in Donkey Kong Country 1, I believe it does manage to help you to see in the dark, like it brings you the actual light, and then it informs of in Donkey Kong Country 2 and 3, basically you can able to fly with him and stuff like that. In this game this time around though, is about the fact that if you, assuming of course if you couldn't find any of those puzzle pieces throughout the majority of the level, speaking of which though, let's see what happens if you do manage to fail the bonus areas such as the forms of this room right here. Basically though, it actually just, you know, thinks that we are the failure or anything else like that. So, again, it's a bit tricky to explain because, again, it's been 3 days ago since we've last played this because, you know, we're still busy playing through Tears of the Kingdom after all, and because of that, well, I'm actually getting a lot of progress for this point, and good news for me that I've managed able to get myself my Hireling Shield earlier on in the game. I know it doesn't meant to be trying to deal with all that stuff, but honestly, you know, similar to Breath of the Wild, I can do anything as far as I wanted to, because obviously it's entirely up to you. And because of that, I just feel like, you know, I enjoy that kind of stuff. So, yeah, if you manage to pay attention to the forms of Squawks the Parrot, again, if you don't find any of those puzzle pieces on your spare time, basically, Squawks the Parrot will notify you to able to know where certain puzzle pieces are. But, if since that we have already collected every single puzzle pieces throughout the majority of the game itself, basically though, that I don't think Squawks the Parrot is going to signify the puzzle pieces are located, especially because, well, we've already collected them all, so, especially that, for some reason, he doesn't seem to able to notify you whenever you see the actual puzzle pieces are in transparent, so, kind of strange that able to actually doesn't seem to able to work for it, although, it is useful if you really want to find the remaining puzzle pieces, but ultimately speaking though, it seems kind of useless if you already 100% everything in the game. So either way, that's how Squawks the Parrot works, so not much else to him, so I guess it might, you know, help you to find any other puzzle pieces, but then again, it seems pretty useless now, so, but I digress. So, if you couldn't tell already about the fact that today's date is of course the 29th of May today, in this case in 2023 today, although we were originally trying to able to mention about the forms of some other things worth noting for, but then again no, we'll let other toys were able to mention more about it during that time, especially because not only for the sake of the forms of, you know, tons of announcements they have, thanks to the forms of the PlayStation Showcase, but also about that time is about the fact that, well, exponentially speaking, the next Mario Kart Tour event is going to happen. So, although recently we do found out that we cancelled that particular Gold Pass subscription again, because I don't think we actually got enough money for it, because obviously that, well, I just feel like it. So as you can see, we actually stumbled across into the third and final item inventory right here. This is what appears to be the banana shake. In this case, if I like to call it the game-breaking item. And basically, as you can tell, since this is the Wii version of the game, basically about the fact that you do have yourselves 10 additional health units. Well, in terms of the actual banana shake, and because of that, you can get hit multiple times if you're liking it and stuff like that. And also, something's worth noting for, that was before when New Super Mario Bros. 2 was a thing, that basically Donkey Kong is actually golden. So meaning about the fact that, well, I can assure you about the fact that, well, it's hard to explain because I haven't exactly used that item that often, but I do use it a lot on the 3DS version, including my spare own time. That would be pretty recommendable though, again, if you're having a hard time with the forms of certain levels in the game, and all that stuff. What I found is a little bit crazy is that, unlike the 3DS version of Donkey Kong Country Returns, that basically though, on the Wii version, you can only choose one item inventory, whilst on the 3DS version, well, the original mode plays out exactly the same as the Wii version, aside from, you know, downgraded visuals and lower frame rate. But it's also worth noting for is that if you ever play the game on new mode, basically you have yourselves the option able to carry up to 3 item inventories, which I'm thinking that seems to be pretty insane if you ask me. But regardless of anything else though, it's just a nice little additional content for the sake of the forms of not only adding some new items to the table on the 3DS version, but also about the fact that you can able to actually have up to 3 item inventory stuff as you're liking. So, and I think that kind of does the same thing for Tropical Freeze, if I recall. Well, mind you, we'll talk more details about that until when we get to next year, until 2024. So as you can see, the more you get hit by certain hazards or objects, basically though is about the fact that the golden Donkey Kong is starts to able to fade in normal or golden, so meaning about the fact that the actual banana shake is almost depleted. So yeah, that's essentially how the banana shake works, especially because again, it is pretty useful if you're having a hard time with the game itself so far. So yeah, I guess that's that. So now let's move on to the last 2 modes before we hit on to the extras menu. And because of that, let's go and showcase off the time attack mode. Because every time whenever you beat the level for the first time, basically the time attack mode is now unlocked. Meaning about the fact that, well, it's nothing mandatory if you really want to go after a 200% of the actual profile. Because obviously in the time attack mode, you simply go for the actual level as normal, but as you can tell, we now ended up in a time limit. So because of that, take this boss fight for example, that, you know, the very first boss in the game, that I'm sure we'll pretty much get to take him on in the quickest way imaginable. So basically though, it's about the fact that it actually has like 3 different medals. So there's gold, silver, and bronze medal. So if you manage to able to beat certain levels or bosses in the quickest amount of time, basically you get yourselves the gold medal. But if you take like a minimal amount of run, you get yourselves a silver medal. But if you take far too long, you get yourselves a bronze medal. You know, similar to the forms of how it does it for the Crash Bandicoot time relics and anything else like that. Like, you know, with the forms of the Sapphire relic, as well as the gold relic, and even especially noticeable with this devastating platinum relic. So as a result of that kind of stuff though, and there's also buddy forms of the purple death relics here and there as well, in Crash Bandicoot 4 in some cases though. And as you can see, we did manage to beat the very first boss in the quickest way imaginable, and basically though, we able to get ourselves a glorious gold medal. But again, you don't have to necessarily try to deal with the forms of the time attack things, because obviously they're just optional, so it's just for bragging rights. So, unless if you really want to show off certain gamers of yours who are able to actually compete certain amount of time, so yeah, I guess it's that. Yeah, not much right to home about for the time attack mode, it's just there. Although, to be fair, unlike the forms of how it does it on Donkey Kong Land 3, that you have to complete every single levels in time attack mode in order able to fully complete everything in Donkey Kong Land 3, whilst in here though, they're just for bragging rights. So, anyways, let's show off the last thing before we move on to the extra stuff. And that's what appears to be the mirror mode. And as you can see, everything else is completely flipped, and as a result, it does kind of reminds me of the forms of Sonic Origins sometimes. Although, the noticeable difference is for this point, is that, well, we actually have 1 unit of health. So, again, if you get hit by the forms of certain enemies or hazards, basically you die instantly. So because of this though, welcome to the hard mode for this point. Especially, although consecutively at this point in time, is that I can assure to you, on the 3DS version of the game, it does have its additional effect. Like, for instance, for example, if you do manage to collect every single Kong letters on the 3DS version in mirror mode, basically it changes to the blue icon instead of the forms of a traditional red color, which you'll see why if we managed able to complete only 1 level. Now, as far as tackling the mirror mode is concerned, unfortunately though, for this entire run through, I don't think it's gonna happen. Especially you go for the exactly same levels again, except with the forms of a different condition. So, yeah, at this point in time, we don't feel like trying to go for a mirror mode run through, especially you play for the exactly same level as you already experienced with, so I don't think there's any point. So, but aside from all that stuff though, if you're really up for the challenge, then obviously if you complete every single levels in the game in mirror mode, you get yourselves an additional percentage meter. So because of that though, the maximum you can get up to, as I said before, is 200%. So because of that though, if you feel like trying to able to go for that challenge, well, by all means, give it a shot. So either way though, yeah, that's as far as I can say about it. Luckily though, in this game in particular, does have checkpoints, so at least it's nowhere near as stingy as the forms of how it does it on, I would say in Tropical Freeze, because in Tropical Freeze, actually does not have any checkpoints on one of the harder difficulties, so yeah, I guess that's the only reason for it. So either way, that's pretty much as far as we can say in terms of the forms of mirror mode in Donkey Kong Country Returns. So again, if you're really up for the challenge by going and, you know, trying to go for a 200%, well, good luck for that. Although, potentially speaking though, if you do have the Wii version, and potentially speaking, if you do have the 3DS version, well, obviously you don't have to worry about stuck indoors all day. So potentially speaking, you can able to play the 3DS version on the go, because obviously the 3DS is more likely a portable handheld system. So, yeah, I guess that's that. So, yeah, I guess that pretty much summarizes the forms of some extras that you can do in the actual main game itself. And there's also the forms of other stuff we'd like to point out, like the Super Kong Guide mode, but honestly, we've already explained about this a lot, especially that there's no point for able to actually activate the, you know, the Super Kong mode, because obviously that we've already completed the game as normal, so because of that though, at least it's just for like, you know, easy modes or something like relates to that. So, again, it's been 3 days ago since we've played this game for sure, but regardless of such, we made it towards the end. But either way, as you can see, that we got ourselves an additional slot on the file selection right here, and also we've got every single puzzle pieces, so meaning we've actually completed every single puzzle pieces in the entire game. So as a result, let's go and showcase off the extras. So in the extras menu, you get yourselves the image gallery, alongside with the forms of the music gallery, and even especially noticeable with the diorama gallery. So basically, you can able to look up on certain images based off from the forms of certain enemies you do encounter, including by the forms of boss encounters, and even especially noticeable with the worlds and the Kong member family, and on top of that, the Golden Temple gallery, and etc, etc. Now, as far as we will probably already noticed from the start though, is that certain enemies do have names, by the way. So as a result of that kind of stuff though, because the reason why we haven't exactly explained that much of those enemies at first glance, because again, it's been a very, very, very long time since we've last played this game, since after we've completed the 3DS version, as far as I can recall. So either way though, that might be saying something. So yeah, anyways, let's give our final thoughts in terms of the forms of, well, I think we've already explained about the forms of the final thoughts in the last video, didn't we? Well, I suppose that might be true, but regardless of such though, that we're most able to say this again anyway, before we end off this playthrough. We will say, we absolutely enjoyed this time, enjoyed this particular game, especially because about the fact that despite there are a lot of emphasis on motion controls here and there, But regardless of such though, this is certainly still as a must-have Nintendo Wii game ever since in 2010. Although you might be able to actually consider getting the game on second-hand conditions now, because as far as I'm aware, that, you know, it's no longer possible you can able to get this game on the Wii U downloadable version of the game, which kind of sucks. But regardless of such though, it is still as a fantastic game, regardless of everything else for that such. Now as you can see, there are certain things has been locked somehow, and because of that though, that's what the mirror mode comes into play, where basically if you really want to see the entire full gallery image, basically you have to complete every level in mirror mode, which as I said before, not happening for this playthrough sadly, but that's just because about the fact that we just want to move on to the next game, and on top of that, it's the exactly the same game as before. Well, assuming if we was able to do it, but I don't think it's 100% guaranteed, because obviously that we just want to move on to the next game. So in some cases, the next game is going to be exciting, because it could be either be not only Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, but also with the forms of, we still need to get around to doing the forms of, well, Donkey Kong King of Swing or DK King of Swing on the Game Boy Advance, along with the forms of Jungle Climber, and heck, maybe we can probably do some ports as well, like potentially speaking the Game Boy Advance version of Donkey Kong Country 1 and Donkey Kong Country 2 and 3, because as far as I'm aware, the original Donkey Kong Country on the Game Boy Advance is expecting to become 20 years old this year. Gee, time flies, you know. And let's not forget ourselves the Game Boy Color version of Donkey Kong Country. Don't remind me, my D. Just don't remind me. Oh, what's wrong with that version? Well, the thing is, because, well, I'm sure we'll try to explain more details about that if we get to the Game Boy Advance version of Donkey Kong Country 1, if we decide to talk about the Game Boy Color version, the most infamous version of the game in my opinion. Although, to be fair though, it does have some very unique features that was not found during the forms of in the original Super Nintendo title. Well, aside from all that stuff though, yeah, that image right there almost kind of reminds me like a Tarzan vibe. You know, with the bamboo forest and stuff like that? Yeah, remember that part where, Tarzan first met the forms of some human characters like Professor Porter, along with the forms of Jane and Clayton and all that stuff. Oh yeah, now I remember. Yeah, especially because concerning about the fact that, speaking of which though, that film will be turning into 25 years old next year. Yeah, I'm quite pleasantly surprised how certain films go fly by with all these releases and all that stuff, so... And yeah, there are some more lock pads here and there. That's just because, again, in order to be able to unlock these, you need to complete mirror mode completely. So, yeah, anyway though, so in terms of other things we could possibly discuss upon things, are basically those about the fact that we are happy to report that basically the Cartoon Network, as far as the actual thing itself, is no longer going to be working on the live-action adaptation of the Powerpuff Girls, which I'm grateful for that, especially because, well, that'll make a total disaster if that's gonna turn out. Well, that's because about the fact that the live-action Powerpuff Girls series is no longer moving forward at the Cartoon Network, or CW as far as I'm aware. Well, I guess, you know, that's a good thing, usually, as far as you've already said this before. And also, it's kind of a weird thing that that particular artwork I do really like, especially it kind of reminds me of the forms like a Paper Mario aesthetics or something, or generally speaking with the forms of Mario vs. Donkey Kong vibe to it. And heck, even there's actually a Virtual Boy tracks here and there, and that's actually a pretty cool image, visual presentation wise. Crackers and puddings, ooh, those sounds delicious in fury. And either way though, let's go and show off the bonus gallery right here, which is all about just Missile-Mania's kind of stuff, which includes Rambi right here, which it looks a little bit more aggressive on that image, as well as the forms of certain concept arts here and there, which they look pretty cool, I'm not gonna lie. So as a result of that kind of stuff though, there's also a weird thing just recently came up to be, that for whatever reason, originally that Pokemon Home was actually going to be supported, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, but as it turns out, it's going to be delayed even further. Oh man, this artwork right there, I really love. Especially, it's almost like an old school retro vibes to it. Like, you get yourselves the Famicom Game Boy Micro background, as far as I'm aware. Yeah, I really do like that image. Yeah, anyway though. So yeah, I just found it was a little bit weird that particular Pokemon Home update is going to be delayed. I'm not exactly sure when exactly though, but I'm sure that we'll just have to wait and see what happens in due time. Even though that, relatively speaking, I haven't exactly thought about any other Pokemon stuff as much as the next guy. But either way though, it knows what it is, I guess. And what I thought was a little bit strange though is about the fact that, relatively speaking, there was a game called Rainbow High Runway Rush is coming onto not only on PlayStation 4 but also on PlayStation 5 and Xbox One and Xbox Series X and also Nintendo Switch by, you guessed it, OG, in this case, Outright Games, the same developer as who made My Little Pony and Maritime Bay Adventure, which, speaking of which though, that game has been out for about a year ago. Like, gee, time flies, you know? Even though, despite the fact that we didn't get the game in the end, but that's just because of its short length. And on top of all that stuff though, it's just about the fact that we're still pretty much gonna save up for the future Nintendo Switch games as far as this is concerned. Well, mind you about the fact that we've already pre-ordered Pikmin 4 now, and on top of all that stuff though, it's just a way of how the fact that, well, we're just more likely gonna more dedicated to the forms of, you know what I mean, with first-party titles most likely, including occasional third-party supportive titles, but that's just the way of how I feel about it. And of course, as you already know, that we've already checked out the sound gallery, or the music gallery, where basically you can listen to all sorts of music here and there, which, either way, unless if you really want to enjoy certain music in this game, then by all means you can do that. And let's get into the fun part, and that is of course the diorama pieces, which again, in order able to actually unlock these, is that you need to not only complete the entire world, but you have to complete the forms of, well, let's just say everything, for the sake of the forms of, well, it's hard to explain really, because either way though, it's been a very long time since we played this. And what I found was a little bit interesting to me though, is that these diorama pieces does kind of remind me of something related to the trophies for the sake of the Super Smash Bros. Games. Like, you can able to actually just rotate the actual diorama, and on top of that you can able to zoom in and zoom out for certain diorama pieces, and exponentially though, just able to look around, able to see some very interesting shots. Mainly particularly for the likes of Donkey Kong is grabbing Diddy's foot as far as continued proceedings goes on the forest. So, but either way though, let's check out the cliff one. Oh jeez, that one is a little bit more intimidating as far as this is concerned, and because of that though, yeah, that's what I can say about that. And let's check out the forms of probably is my favorite diorama in this game. That's of course the factory, and speaking of which, we got ourselves the Donkey Kong Nostalgia based off in the arcade game. Because of that though, you see Donkey Kong is holding a barrel, and on top of that, the actual construction part does remind me of the forms of the good old Donkey Kong arcade game. So yeah, pretty swell I might add. So yeah, that's basically all there is to it. And let's check out the final diorama, which is of course the volcano. And my goodness, looks awesome. Especially because we have a one-on-one confrontation with the forms of Tiki Tong, and relatively speaking though, everything else will be pretty much accounted for. So either way, and aside from all that stuff though, that's as far as we can able to show off in terms of the forms of the extras menu. So either way though, yeah, that's pretty much about it basically. So that concludes our Let's Play of Donkey Kong Country Returns for the Nintendo Wii version most likely. Even though we were planning to able to do the 3DS version in the future, to able to show you some differences here and there, but we'll have to wait and do it at some point in the future, depending on time or anything else like that. So, and as far as doing this Let's Play is concerned, we are very, very, very appreciated that we able to enjoy this particular Let's Play, especially that we were originally trying to able to do this back in 2012, but of course we got distracted by the forms of tons of Mario Party Let's Plays back in the day, despite how rough they are. But regardless of such though, we now moved on to the new years to come, so everything else will be a lot more improved over the likes of how it does in the past eras. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching of our Let's Play of Donkey Kong Country Returns for the Nintendo Wii. Yep, and this is me, Mighty the Armadillo, and Ray the Flying Squirrel here, and we are from the likes of the Mexi Toys videos. Up next in terms of the Donkey Kong series of Let's Plays will be Donkey Kong Country for the GBA, and Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze until again next year for the 10th anniversary of release of the game. So I'll see you guys until that time. See ya! Bye!